So welcome, ladies, once again to Woman2Woman. How are you today? I'm your host, Cherrie Orius, and today, my guest, we are speaking with Miss Kaleema Overton-Ameen, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure I get that right. She's an author, advocate, and survivor whose powerful story, book, Hidden in Plain Sight. Wow, it's powerful and it's awesome. Um,
Thank you.
and basically, the book is about, are you being groomed for love bombing, and for love bombing, spirit breaking, and abandonment. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, um, I have had the pleasure. I was there during the actual book launch. But Kaleema, what I would like to do right now is to offer you the floor to just speak to the audience, tell them a little bit about yourself, and before we get directly into the interview.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Kaleema Overton-Ameen, and this is actually my first book. I didn't have any intention of writing this type of book. I always thought, even as a child, I would write a book of poetry. I had started writing poetry and short stories when I was 12. And then I ended up going to school and I majored in English lit. And in grad school, I was still in the writing area because I was in public policy and then spent 30 years writing federal policies and procedures. And I never really thought about writing a book. And then we were taken on a family vacation by my ex-husband at the time, and it was actually our wedding anniversary, and he left us there. And so it just really was a very devastating, of course, devastating situation. But, fast forward past that, the policy analyst in me started to ask questions like, who does this
Mhm.
happen to? Why does this happen? How can we protect ourselves? And so that led me into talking to so many women and finding out, oh my gosh, this is happening a lot more than we think. And it's, happening way too often. And so as a policy analyst, I wanted to develop a corrective action plan to this problem. And so that led me to my book, Hidden in Plain Sight.
That's awesome. It's funny how different things come together to lead us down a path that, like you said, we never even figured we ever go down.
Right.
So that's awesome. So what I would like to ask you, and I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, Kaleema, what inspired you to write Hidden in Plain Sight? Like, was there a particular moment that took place, or maybe something that triggered the decision, or even just coming, like you said, in contact with others? Like, what was that actual defining moment?
I would say the most defining moment, because even at that time when I was researching about who does this happen to and why, it still hadn't
Mhm.
dawned on me at that point to write a book. I was
Oh.
still just trying to figure things out for myself and unravel like what that happened, right? And so I
Mhm.
wasn't even thinking about writing a book at that point. And then when had an opportunity to talk with the previous spouse of that same person, and when she described to me everything that happened to her, I was even more dumbfounded because it
Right.
turned out like this is not a happenstance. This is a process. This is a predatory process. And so that's when it really hit me what was happening. And so, as I said, when I was talking to other women, um, I just felt like I didn't want someone else to have to go through what I went through. And I was so grateful to her to even speak with me. And she was the one that explained to me this process that I had gone through. And up until then, I'm thinking it was just something that was a happenstance, not a happenstance, but something that was just limited to this situation, that it was in a vacuum. I was looking at it in a vacuum. And I wasn't looking at it like, oh, this is a process that narcissists go through, and this is what they do to everybody that they encounter. Not just, it's not
Yeah.
just me, right? And
Right.
they want you to think that it's you because they want you to share or take on all of the blame. And on top of the blame comes right behind that is the shame. Like, what did I do wrong? How did I end up in this situation? I must have done something to make the person treat me this way. So, if they can get you to buy into the blame, they can get you to buy into the shame, which means they can get your silence.
Right.
So
No,
she
I think
freed me of that. She freed me of all of that. And I was like, wow, this has nothing to do with me. And I remember she kept saying to me, it has nothing to do with you. And I was like, wow, she said, it has nothing to do with you. This is what they do everywhere they go. Yeah.
that's amazing. So, okay, now I've been because especially now in our woke society, um, you hear the term narcissist thrown around almost like you hear the word love or hello. And in some cases I don't want us to get to a place where we desensitize the word.
Mhm.
So I started once I read your book, and I started like, spotting things from, like you said, past relationships and so forth. So I started researching, more about narcissism, right? Because I was one of those persons that everything was, oh, that's narcissistic. That's narcissistic. So, and in your book and everything, you talk about the different types of narcissism, the
Mhm.
different levels. So, first, let me start there. Let me have you at least explain um, what really the narcissist is, and the different types of narcissism, because we're just thinking, oh, it's this, but you actually went in depth to actually break it out for us. So go ahead and
And you're right. So many people use narcissism interchangeably with bad behavior. And I
Mhm.
always like to say that bad behavior does not a narcissist make. Okay. So all bad behavior is not narcissism. And the way we can kind of, just because I know we have a short amount of time, the way that we can kind of distinguish if we're dealing with a person with bad behavior or a person that has narcissistic behavior or who is actually diagnosable with narcissistic personality disorder is three different levels, right? But
Mhm.
when you're thinking about, we have children. The 2-year-old is probably the biggest narcissist known to mankind. I want what I want. I want it when I want it, and you're going to give it to me, and I don't care how you have to suffer to do it, right? But the 2-year-old has an underdeveloped frontal lobe,
Right.
right? And the frontal lobe governs critical thinking, empathy, and risky behavior. The 2-year-old has none of that. They don't care. They just want that lollipop. They're going to fall out in the middle of Walmart, and they
Yep.
don't care about the critical thinking, thinking through the process. What is gonna be the end of this process? They don't have the empathy to say, I don't want to embarrass my parents. I don't want to disturb the other shoppers. They don't have that. And they don't have the ability to determine risky behavior because it's all a risk if you're acting the fool out there, right? You don't know what's going to
You're
happen
right.
next, right?
You're
But they
right.
don't have any of this. And all of the behavior is bad, it's expected. But when you're thinking about a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old not going to fall out on the floor, but they're still going to have that tantrum. 16-year-old is going to all this mouth, even in college, right? Because the frontal lobe doesn't finish developing until you're around 25 or 30.
Right.
So fast forward, when you're looking at the narc, the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old narc still has this same behavior. I want what I want. I want it when I want it, and you're going to give it to me. I don't care how you have to suffer. But their temper tantrum is going to show up as abuse, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and maybe even legal abuse. It's
Mhm.
all a reaction to you not capitulating to what they asked for. You're not meeting their many demands, or all of a sudden you have become you become, your worth has decreased somehow because you're not giving them everything, you're not putting them on a pedestal, so now they have this tantrum. But when you think about the person with the bad behavior, when you present them with an alternative, like the 2-year-old, the alternative
Right.
is if you ask politely, then you can have XYZ. And they start to learn to say, may I please have such and such? And when you
Right.
present the person with bad behavior with an alternative, whether they're 2 or 16 or 25, they're going to lean into positive change, right? It could be therapy, it could be counseling, it could be just you offering them another alternative to a positive end, but the narcissist is never going to lean into that. If you take them to therapy, they're going to try to groom the therapist. If they can't do that, they're going to tell you the therapist is incompetent. If they can't convince you of that, they're going to say you're a fool for going to therapy. There is no avenue for positive change with the narcissist. And that's how
Right.
you know if you're dealing with someone and you see these unempathetic, very self-centered, abusive behaviors. If they're under 30, you might be looking at a person who's still developing. Their frontal lobe hasn't really hit its peak yet. But if you're looking
Mhm.
at someone who's over 30 and they don't lean into change, and the person under 30, you may offer them change, then you know you're dealing with someone who's likely has narcissistic behavior or may actually be a narcissist. So that's kind of the dividing line between the bad behavior, the narcissist. None of it is good, but at least, the other one, the bad behavior, you can kind of see if they can lean into some positive change. I hope that makes sense.
Right. Wow. No, it does. It really does because and that's what I wanted you to really explain because, like you said, bad behavior, the difference between bad behavior and narcissistic behavior.
Mhm.
So, in your discovery and in your journey, like you said, you speak of the spiritual narcissist, the I mean, just can you give a touch on a little bit of the each types of narcissists that you can come across?
Well, the narcissism is on a spectrum, so
Hmm.
there's a lot of different levels. I just kind of divided them after doing my research into the covert narc and the malignant narc, and then there's the serial K narc. I don't think I can say that word on social media.
Okay.
The person who routinely unalives multiple people. That's what I call like the serial K narc, right? Because the serial
Right.
K at the core is a narcissist,
Right.
right? But when you divide them up into the covert and the malignant narc, the covert narc is the one that, ooh, it's to be inverted. There you go. Walks the walk, talks the talk, and looks the part of a safe person. So you will find the
Mhm.
religious covert narcissist in that space. The people, the covert narcissist is oftentimes going to be they're going to be a very successful person, in their space. And this is just one of the masks that they wear. They wear masks to hide and to make people think that they're normal. Like they need us. Like the narcissist needs you to look normal. Because they can say, I have
Right.
a wife, I have a husband, I have a career, I have a family, I have a home. I go to church, I go to the mosque, I go to the synagogue, I volunteer in the community. I'm just like you. They're not like us because all of that is just a facade, it's a mask to disguise who they really are, right? And so the
Right.
religious narcissists, the religious covert narcissists, you'll find them in the pulpit, you'll find them on the minbar, the mosque, you're going to find them in the congregation leading different things because they want to be in power, they want to be in control of things. And the covert religious narcissist knows that everyone shows up at the place of worship feeling safe. And that takes away a whole level of grooming for them. They don't have to do too much grooming.
Right.
Not only do everybody feel safe, everyone is leaning towards marriage. And so this is really a quick avenue to what the covert needs is to have to set up shop, to have a family to put on the front to say, to make them seem safe,
Right.
productive.
Wow.
But the malignant narcissist, they don't do all of that. The malignant narcissist is not really in it for the long haul. They are the person who you can openly see is abusive, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, and legally abusing people, manipulating people,
Mhm.
just openly doing it. Not only abuse the person that's their target, when people come to their defense, come to their aid, they'll abuse them too. Like the Pennsylvania Avenue is full of them, right? And so they're
Right.
openly abusive, and people say, how do they get away with that? They're openly abusive, and no one stops them.
Right.
The good thing about the pregnant narc, you have a chance to get out the way. The covert narc is going to infuse themselves in your family, with your friends, your religious circle. They're going to compromise all of your safe spaces. And so you don't even know until the end what you're dealing with. It's like the big. But the malignant narc, that's the person you just cross the street. When you see them coming, you just go the other
Yeah.
way, right? You can see them coming a mile away. But the covert
Right.
and the serial K narc, they have the same grooming tactic. They infuse themselves in families and your friend group and your church and your community, your mosque, and you don't see it coming.
And I like the fact that when you led into with the grooming. So for the listeners that who are actually unfamiliar, how do you define grooming in the context of romantic relationships and narcissistic abuse? And then what again, I know you spoke on about bad behavior, but what makes that different from just a bad relationship?
Well, the grooming is also on a spectrum. And in my book, I
Mhm.
divide everything into these five categories: mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and legal. And so, just like grooming in any other type of situation, the grooming must feel good. And then also, after the grooming feeling good, they have to really put the blame on you for whatever you experience negative out of that grooming. Those are two things that's going to happen. So even in the
Okay.
romantic relationship or even with family, even, in a religious space, even at work, you can be groomed in any of these spaces because they're going to give you something. They're going to offer you everything, give you everything, and get you hooked up and tangled into this like this tornado type. And you're getting sucked in, and everything you say you want, you need, you hope for, your dreams, your aspirations, they're going to me too. This is part of the grooming. They're right. But
Hmm.
then one, and they're going to show you off, put you on a pedestal, take you to the family, the friends, the religious organizations, your work and everything, and they're going to show you off, but it's really not for you, it's for them. Because again, the narcissist's main goal is to make people think that they're normal. So they put you on a pedestal because you're a beer for the narc, so they can look normal and safe. But once you call them out, if you call them out on their hypocrisy, or you start to see behind the mask, or you start to try to hold them accountable for what they said they were going to do, now you become public enemy number one, and they're going to have to bust you down. Here comes the demeaning, the spirit breaking, right? The abuse, the ghosting, coming back and forth, disappearing acts. Now they have to cut you down to size because you have found out. And this is the most dangerous space for you because now they know that you know, right?
Wow.
So
Right.
now the grooming is going to end and it's going to come back and forth. And sometimes they're going to groom you again to get you to forget about the bad behavior or whatever they did. And this is how the trauma bond begins to get set in. It's not at the end of the relationship, it's right here in the love bombing stage, in the beginning, because you're not bonded to the trauma, you're bonded to the hope of change, the hope of getting back to that person that you first met, which
Right.
really was a lie. That person never existed. And so you're constantly trying to get back to that person. That's the trauma bond, back to that experience and that feeling, that sugar high is not coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like they said, trying to get the representative back,
Yeah.
and they're
The,
gone.
yeah. The representative is gone. Right.
Um, in your book, you outline the 9 red flags that someone may be being groomed.
Hmm.
Um, and again, without giving everything away, can we like touch on a couple of those things or attributes?
Hmm. But one of the main things you're going to see is fast movement. Because the narcissist, remember, is walking a walk, talking a talk, part of a safe person, whether it's male or female. They're going to be moving really fast. They're going to also constantly put you on a pedestal, and it's really a recipe for disaster. Because in your mind, you may think being on a pedestal is nice, but no, it's not. Because the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. And they're going to
True.
put you in a position where you're perfect, which means it sets you up for failure. Any misstep, now you're down off that pedestal, and now, as I said, you're public enemy number one. So you're going to see this
Okay.
in the beginning stages. Like they're going to say, "Oh, you're perfect for me," and everything you say you want and need, they're going to say, "That's perfect for me." I remember in the very early conversations with the ex, and then all of a sudden the marriage was coming into play, and I was like, well, do you know? And I start listing all of these things about myself that are not right, like not right, not good, not like right for
Right.
what I thought he was looking for. And I said, are you sure? Because, I'm very outspoken, I'm career oriented, I know how to keep house, but it's not my focal point. I have a whole
Right.
career, I have community, I have, so I started listing all of these things to kind of like move him away from the idea. And he's like, well, you want to get married, don't you? I was like, but I never asked you to get married. I'm telling
Yeah.
you might not like about me, right? But then when you do that, the narcissist is going to say, oh, no, that's great. That's perfect. That's what I want. You're perfect for me. That's what I need. That's what I've been looking for. This person didn't have that. This person had, and they're going, like, it's perfect. But when I was doing my research for my book, one of the psychologists said the perfect first meeting is a red flag in and of itself.
Wow.
And it's true. I have a twin sister. We're not the same. So how can we have different wants and needs and aspirations? So how can this person totally outside of me be perfectly aligned with me? Because the narcissist is going to align themselves mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially with whatever you say you want and need. It's going to be perfect alignment. But when you think about perfect alignment, that means there's room for growth. When they say opposites attract, or, people have different wants and needs, now you have an opportunity to see things from a different perspective. You have an opportunity for growth. You have an opportunity to really be your best self. You can't be your best self when everything is in perfect alignment.
That's
For my
true.
son, hmm,
Didn't even think about it that way. Never
yeah,
even thought about it that way. Like said, if everything is
Because we can't
perfect,
grow.
again, like you said, where's the growth? Because there's nothing to disagree about.
Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I think about when I had my son, I was working from home I worked from home for 9 months straight. So guess what? He pretty much attached to the hip. Now, when I went back to work, now he's in the daycare setting. And I was amazed, like all the stuff that he could do. And I'm like, I didn't know he could do that. Why? There was alignment. I was in alignment with him. I'm going at his pace. He
Hmm.
had no reason or opportunity to grow other than beyond what I was doing for him. You know what I'm saying? So when he got into this other space, it was like he had all this space to grow, and he see others doing other things, and the other things are presented to him, and now he's growing, right? And this the narcissist is going to do that. They're going to align themselves with you. It's going to feel real comfortable. It's a grooming tactic to make you feel safe, but there is no growth in there, and they don't care about you growing because they don't intend to be there that long anyway.
Wow.
Even if they're physically there, they're going to emotionally, spiritually, financially check out at some point, even if they're still there physically. They have no the intention of being emotionally there for the long haul. So they don't care about your growth.
Okay. Now, and the fact that you said that even if they stay,
Hmm.
they're going to check out emotionally and so forth. So, and that kind of like surprises me because I would think, as they say, once they've drained you of all your supply, and like they even how you say he's already probably got the next supply somewhere else waiting and grooming them. What would what what would make a narcissist stay after they've pretty much depleted you already and they already have another source elsewhere? I
Well,
mean,
I would say one, they are not going to leave a place where they have comfort. And
okay,
you may think this is a whole lot of chaos. Well, the narcissist loves chaos. It's like a pig in the mud. The pig,
okay,
they don't get up out the mud and walk off. They don't mind the mud. They want the comfort, right? So even if the narcissist has checked out emotionally, spiritually, and financially from the family, if they still have a place to go and sleep and eat, right? And have all these comforts, these creature comforts, they have no reason to leave until it's uncomfortable for them. What's going to make them uncomfortable is you not, capitulating to everything they ask for. It doesn't matter if
okay,
they always have another supply, right?
right,
But they're always going to go to the place that requires the least amount of change and accountability. So if they can check out everywhere else and you allow them to stay physically, there's no accountability for them. They don't mind. They don't mind being in the chaos. They love the chaos. They don't care because that's another way for them to just torture you. Sometimes they would just not leave just to make it miserable for you. And
wow,
people think, oh, he or she is still here, so I'm winning. What are you winning? You're winning an opportunity to be miserable every day, for them to kind of twist the knife every day, and then to take the
wow,
love bomb back again, right?
right.
Yeah. So they don't mind staying because, the pigs love the mud.
So, wow, that's like a real like mind opening, like wow. It's because I'm listening to you and I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, so yeah, it makes sense. As dad's my dad always say, why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? It's kind of that type of scenario. But so, like you said, why would they go make themselves this, uncomfortable when they get away with murder anyway? You know?
Hmm.
So okay, that why did what would you say? Because you draw on your own life, but also the stories of other women that you interview. Um, Listening to the experiences that they've shared with you and you shared with them. Um, your inform us of your own healing process. Like, um, did it help you, I guess, understand, what happened to you? Did it help you even more with just understanding people more? Or, how did that even affect, your interaction with other, not just even romantically, just people, period?
Yeah, I think writing the book was really a healing journey twofold. And as you said, it helped me understand, the dynamics of other people. And it also helped me to understand myself. And when it comes to when I interviewed the women, I was the first one to interview because, of course, you can't ask somebody to do something you're not willing to do yourself because it's a very, very uncomfortable space. Because you have to open up all of these old wounds and you have to really dig into, all of the hurt and the pain and the despair and the anguish. So I interviewed first. I had another writer interview me, and then I interviewed everyone else. And so I felt sometimes they would tell me I can't interview today because they were just really kind of opening up these wounds. And I would go on to the next person and work my way around until I had everyone completed. Sometimes I felt like I don't even want to interview because it was actually causing trauma for me, to even hear what the trauma that they were going through. And on top of, you have to remember while I was writing the book, I was still in therapy. I
Right.
didn't write the book
So,
after I healed. I wrote the book while I was in therapy. So all of this stuff was going on with me as well. But it did teach me about myself. I learned that there's like these four attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and confused. I mean, disorganized. And I learned I
mhm,
have the anxious attachment style. I learned about myself. One of the things that made me susceptible to this type of predatory behavior is that I have the anxious attachment style because I'm so overly concerned about making sure everyone around me is okay, even when I'm not okay. And I am the person that literally I was on 8 committees at one time because every time somebody would ask me to get on a committee, I would say yes. Because in
right.
my mind, I'm thinking, I need to help them. I don't want them to go without this thing that they need. Never mind, I'm overwhelmed. Never mind, I have a full-time job. I have a teenager. I have, elderly people in my family I had to take care of, my dad. Never mind all of that. Oh, yeah, I can be on your committee because I know that you need the help. This is the anxious attachment style, right? Well, the narcissist is going to suck that right up, right? Drain you completely. So I learned
Right.
about myself that I have to learn how to set boundaries and just really learn how to say no.
Right.
Even when we are like career oriented and we're out, I'm in a situation where I'm training sometimes 400 people at one time. I'm not a
Mhm.
shrinking wallflower, but I realize about myself that I don't just say no. And I'm okay with being uncomfortable. And the narcissist is definitely okay with your being uncomfortable. They don't care. They will let you twist yourself into a pretzel to help them while they offer nothing. You pour into them and they won't pour back, right? And so this
Mhm.
is one of the things I learned how to now that after I understood my attachment style, it gave me a whole level of armor that I didn't have before because I can stop myself. We do things because we think it's normal. I normalized making myself too available and too helpful and thinking it's a good thing. I normalized that, which made me susceptible to narcissistic abuse
Wow.
because I made it seem like it was a thing and it's not normal. It's not normal to be on 8 committees at one time. It's not
Yeah.
acceptable to do that. Draining your own personal space, effort that went into that. And so
Right.
I have to understand somebody else can do it. I don't have to,
Right.
right?
So, so would you also say that would be, I guess, a part of what they call the people, like people pleasing? I
Hmm.
know me
Right.
myself at one point, like you, I had a problem with saying no. I, like you said, if someone wanted something, needed something, I'm gonna find a way. So, but that was the people pleaser in me, you know.
Hmm.
And like you said, it left me drained because it put me in circumstances where I should have never been, and I couldn't even really shoulder. And instead of speaking up and like you said and saying no, that's just too much, I'd stress myself out. Um,
But
mhm,
a lot of times people think of people as people who are pushover. But
mhm,
people pleasers are very capable, um, out front people that sometimes are leadership because they're people pleasers, right?
mhm.
And so we have to really think about that, also on a spectrum. Like that doesn't mean that the person is a pushover. It means the person is just kind of overly helpful. You just kind of do too much, right? You help too
Right,
much. You're capable, right?
Right.
We need to put that, what I learned to do, and it was kind of by accident, really, not accident. After I learned about this, I didn't have an opportunity to use it. Then one day, literally, somebody called me up to ask me to be on this committee. And out of nowhere, out of my mind, I mean, and it came out of my mouth, I said, well, I would like to, but I'm focusing on my self-care. And I didn't offer anything else. And the person said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, let me know whenever you're going to be free. Like, I'm like, what? Was that easy? I didn't even think to say that. How could it be so easy?
Right.
And then I thought about it. I said, now if that person had come back and tried to push, all you have to do is this. It's not going to take that much time. All you did, then you're dealing with a person that doesn't care about your self-care. But when I put that self-care on the end of that, I'm working on my self-care. That was like a litmus test. But I didn't think about it, but it just came out naturally after learning about my attached style and learning I need to learn how this is the easy way for me to say no, and also to figure out
Right.
what kind of person I'm dealing with. Then the person came back later, maybe 6 months later, and asked me to do something that was a smaller task. And I said yes,
Hmm.
right? But I understood when that person said, you know what, I'm sorry, I hope that things get better for you. I didn't say that things were bad. I just said I'm working on my self-care, right? But the person had
Right.
concern for me. And then let me know when they come back again, now I can make myself available.
Right. Okay. Because they're not just looking for what they can get out of you, but they are actually genuinely concerned about your health as well. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, I do get that. Um, so the book also doesn't just talk about or expose the abuse.
Mhm.
It's also aims to guide people towards recovery. What were the first steps you took on your healing journey after breaking free?
After breaking free,
Hmm.
um, you mean after the
So,
abandonment? Well,
and I
what
got,
I'm trying to
I
figure out what point is the breaking free point that you're referring to, so I can answer properly, I guess.
okay. So for me, I would say the breaking free point, for my interpretation of anything would be when you reach that point of saying, you know what, you took, it's like they say that waiting to exhale point. You
Mhm.
exhaled and said, okay, it is what it is. Now, let me move forward. You're no longer trying to fight it or anything. You've come to that point of acceptance.
Okay. I think that my breaking free moment was when I had an opportunity to talk to the previous victim of the narcissist. Because
Okay.
up until that moment, I think I was still trying to put blame and not responsibility on myself, which is different.
Hmm.
And I kept trying to figure out, like, I must have done something, although I knew I didn't do anything, right? So it wasn't until I spoke with her and she started recounting her experience with the same person, and it was
Hmm.
really identical and opposite in some ways. The experience, the grooming process was identical. And while I'm sitting and watching her talking, I kept drifting into thinking, is she talking about me or is she talking about herself? Because
Right.
everything was, that was a breakthrough moment for me, that
Okay.
this is a cookie cutter process, and and she kept ending age thing, but it doesn't have anything to do with you. Not in a negative way, that you got to remove yourself from that, because it was
Right.
so identical. But the other thing that was the opposite was when that person groomed and got in the space, they were a different person. They were not
Right.
the person that was leading with religion, because the narcissist is going to lead with whatever is going to make you comfortable to let your guard down,
Okay.
because they're shapeshifters.
Right.
They know that religion is an important thing for you and you're on this religious journey, they're going to lead with that. And the narcissist knows about all religions, not because they care, because they need to have a way to get in.
It's
But
the
if they know
tool.
that, like one of the ladies in my book, the narcissist led with, she mentioned in conversation that she wanted to open a yoga studio. Well, lo and behold, the narcissist shows up with a whole business plan for her yoga studio.
Wow.
And then when they get engaged and she brings her mom, who was in another country, to meet him, he doesn't even
Mhm.
show up. He disappears. And then when she sees him again, he acts like he doesn't remember any of it. They were
Wow.
engaged.
Yeah.
When we kind of give too much information, the narcissist is always gathering information. And so when she mentioned about the yoga studio, when I mentioned about the spiritual walk, when the next lady mentions about to own purchase a home, the narcissist is going to jump right in at that point, right? And then
Mhm.
that's how you're going to be entangled in what you think is a safe space, which is really very dangerous. I hope I answered
Never think.
that kind of a
No,
long.
you answering. You're doing. Oh my no, you answered it, and it's honestly it's so helpful because it's you know you don't just you've given good information, because you don't think about it that way. A lot of times you just think about, okay, hey, me and this person, like you said, are in alignment in this, or we are similar in these ways. You're not looking at as it if I'm being groomed. This person is taking my hopes and my dreams and basically weaponizing them against me.
Oh,
So
yes,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. We don't ask, we ask the follow-up questions, but we don't ask the follow-up to the follow-up. And then we don't ask for proof and receipts, right? So if
True.
that person is saying, okay, I want to, I don't know, whatever it is they're saying they want to do, you need to ask them, like, what have you done so far towards that goal? And ask to see it. But we don't do that because, especially for women, we're always taught to be polite and we don't want to overstep. We don't want to be rude. We don't want to be invasive. But you're thinking
True.
about your whole future could be tied to this person.
Right.
We don't ask for receipts and proof. If the person says, I want to purchase a home, you don't, well, what real estate agent are you using? Do you have a lender? What have you done so far? Have you looked at, what are you doing towards this goal? You want to open your own business? What are you doing towards this goal? But the
You
the functioning covert narc is going to try to produce something, right? So you have to really kind of wait it out and not just take it at face value. When you get around their family, their friends, what do you think about so and so said they want to do this, that, and the third? And when they start looking at you like you're crazy, like, what are you talking about? They never said they wanted to do that. They never want to go on Hajj. They never said they want to open a yoga studio. And you have to really kind of be a little forthcoming and say, hey, what do you think about this? And
right.
ask questions, ask for proof and documentation, on these things. It's
Right.
not, and you're thinking about your whole future is going to be sidelined dealing with this person.
Right. And you're right. We don't do the follow-up questions. Is we pretty much take everything at face value. This is what they said they want to do. So and you just go with the assumption that that's what it is.
Just,
Um, mhm.
just imagine had I said, can I speak to your ex-wife? And people say that's messy. No, it's not messy. It's not
No,
messy.
it's
You don't have to
not.
speak in somebody
In
else's
this
opinion. Can
day.
my sister speak to your ex-wife? You don't have to really be involved. Can my
Right.
brother, my dad, can my minister, my pastor, my imam speak to your ex-wife? It's not
Right.
messy. You don't have to be involved in it, but you do want to get the information
Yeah.
because the lady the yoga studio story, in my book, it's not a story, the lady's experience when she found out later, just like I found out later, that he had approached many women with these different business ideas to reel them in. And they were all women who wanted to be entrepreneurs. And he did the same thing. Right. And so
Mhm.
she didn't think to ask that. I didn't think to ask for proof. And he was saying that, oh, he left her in a good situation to be able to care for herself and her kids. And she finds out he left them destitute and nearly homeless. Right. We're
Yeah.
thinking like, oh yeah, I pay all these bills. I did this, I did that. I pay my child support. But show me your statements to pay your child support. Let me see your child support agreement. Let me see what situation you have worked out for your child support.
Yeah. We have to, and
You have to
especially in
ask.
this day and age, we have to be more diligent now. Um, I guess is when you think about it, when you get a job, I know back in the day they don't do so much of it now. They do background checks, but I can recall back in the day, whenever you went for filled out the application and they asked for your references, they literally used to call your references. Nowadays, okay, they rely on the background check, but yeah, and I guess that is something that, we should be more mindful of because, like you said, show me the receipts, check that reference. Who are you? Outside of who you're representing to me, because we show up different for other people. So, I mean, yeah, and in this world today, we do need to be more diligent in um, being a private eye per se, you know?
No, we need to, I think as women, and some women are not gonna like when I say this, but I learned the hard
Mhm.
way. So I'm telling you, as women, we need to remove ourselves from the situation. Like we don't need to really be involved. Like, especially it depends on the goal because courtship and dating is two different things. Dating is
Right.
more for we're gonna spend time, we have the entertainment, and it may lead to marriage, but it's not the intent.
Mhm.
Courtship has the intent of marriage.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna go on that side. If you have the intent of marriage and you are involved in a courtship, you need to remove yourself from that space. You need to have a third party. You need to have the minister, the imam, the wakil, the wali, for Muslims, or you need to have someone to have that conversation with that person very early on. Do not get involved in the conversation. As soon as we involve ourselves in the conversation, we are putting ourselves in jeopardy. Because guess what?
Gotcha.
Persons are always going to have some way to explain away any discrepancies, right? To explain away any, bad behavior to us. And we
Right.
may be likely to accept it because we're
Right.
thinking this person is a good person. But the person who doesn't have a dog in the fight is going to ask all the real questions. Not that they don't have a dog in the fight. The person that doesn't have any emotional attachment. They're going to ask
Right.
the hard question. And you can
Right.
relieve yourself of even asking those hard questions. Like, I don't even want to think that much anymore. Like, let somebody else do the dirty work. Let somebody
Right.
else be the bad cop. And you let me know what you feel about this. But we have to also lean into releasing the power to that person. Pick someone, your bad cop, that you truly trust. So you're not uh, overstepping or second guessing them. The process doesn't work if you're gonna second guess your bad cop.
Right.
What are you doing? You wasting everybody's time, right? So you have
Right.
to also relinquish that power to your bad cop and say, you know what, whatever you decide, I'm going with it. But you have to pick wisely. Don't worry about picking that person. Pick a good bad cop and then lean into it and let them do their job. Don't go on their job, you know, going around them, having these conversations with the person behind their back,
Right.
exchanging information and all of this type of stuff. Don't do that because you put the person in place for your protection. They can't protect you if you're stepping out from behind them.
Right. That's true.
If you're
That's true.
walking down the street with your someone who's going to protect you, and the criminal jumps out, and you come from behind that person, now they can't protect you because you all in the way. We got to get out of our own way and not think about being super independent to a fault. Get out your own way and let the people who are there to protect you let them do their job.
That job.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Um, what are some practical exercises or mindset shifts that you found have been helpful in your healing, in your journey?
Just that, getting out of my own way, relinquishing power to people who mean well, who mean to protect me, not feeling like I have to protect myself because I'm a strong, independent career woman. Well, okay, that's something different. I can do that.
Mm.
When it comes
Right.
to our personal protection, our vision is skewed and blurred, right?
Okay.
And so it's blurred by wanting to have that connection with someone, which is fine, but it blurs your judgment. It really
It
does.
does.
And women need to understand, like you need to have someone else in between you and that person.
Hmm.
Because, when you're thinking about your frontal lobe, the critical thinking, empathy, and risky behavior that's going on in the frontal lobe, it's like a satellite always taking in information, but the narcissist is going to be like um, a cloud over that satellite. And your information is going to be filtered through the narcissist. So we need to
Right.
really remove ourselves from that space and let somebody else do the filtering, right? And not have all these, I'm saying if you're in a courtship that you want to lead
Right.
to marriage, then you
Right.
need to remove yourself from that. Remove
Right.
yourself from that and let that person be a vanguard for you. And men need to do it too. Men need to
Right.
do it too. Because the thing is, we don't recognize a lot of the game that men are running, but men recognize it really quickly. And for men,
They do.
it's the same thing. The woman can run a circle around that man, but let his sister come in there or his mama, his niece, his daughter, they're gonna be up. I don't know.
Hmm. I see what
It
you're
ain't hate.
doing.
They feel it. They know like this woman is running some circles around him, right?
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
male narcissist is going to lead with offering some type of stability and protection or whatever. And the female narcissist is going to lead with distracting them with all this physical stuff. And then his mind
Mm.
is gone. He can't even think straight, right? So,
Mhm.
but the woman can come in and say, right? And the
Right.
who's going you're going to be a vanguard is going to ask those hard questions about his leadership and his manhood and his accountability. He's going to ask him that stuff. Where is your ex-wife? Can I talk?
Got you.
He's going to ask that question. When he starts stuttering, keep it pushing.
Uh-huh.
Keep it pushing. If he you don't need to talk to her, but she gonna say this. Who cares what they're gonna say? If somebody wants to talk to my ex-husband, go ahead and talk to him. I don't know what he's gonna say. He might lie. He might tell the truth. Who cares? Go ahead and do it.
That's right.
Right?
They got nothing
Because
to hide.
they might lie, but then you have to still have that person who is the intermediary, the vanguard, to really decipher that, not us, because our vision is going to be skewed by what the need and the want to fulfill our religious duties, or the need and the want to have, that life partner. And that's going to cloud your judgment, let alone
Right.
if you're dating, because courtship does not involve physical intimacy.
Right.
Dating may involve physical intimacy. So even on that side, it's going to be even worse because now you have the physical intimacy that is also clouding your judgment. And some people start out in a courtship and end up in a dateship and never get to the marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
I get, yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That does. So healing from narcissistic abuse, it can be messy and nonlinear. In your own journey, did you face setbacks? Perhaps something that, maybe an unexpected emotional trigger, of doubts or anything, and how do you navigate them?
I think we have to, I did face setbacks. I think after that
Mhm.
aha moment that I told you about talking with the previous victim, I was able to plow forward after that because I was in a very fortunate situation to be able to do that. Most people won't have that opportunity. So it's going to be months and maybe years of clouded uncertainty because a narcissist intends to leave you without closure. But that gave me the closure that I
Mhm.
needed. From the narc, you never want to go there to get closure. If you can't get it from someplace else, you get it, you want to get it from yourself. But I had the extra help of getting the closure from that person, right? So
Right.
I think when it comes to the facts, we have to really stay focused on being in the here and the now and the present and setting those
Mhm.
goals. I talk about that in my book, those 8 steps to recovery, setting those goals mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, and legally, and setting timelines, measurable goals that are reasonable for where we are, and not focusing on the past. Because when we're constantly dwelling on the past, it'll cause you to catapult into depression and
Right.
constantly being super focused on the future, that would be in me, is going to cause you anxiety, worrying and thinking about things that you have no control over. So I had to also gain control over that part of myself because I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm always trying to plan stuff. But it's a workplace hazard because I'm a policy analyst and my job is to analyze procedures people already put in place. And my job is to figure out where the holes are. So I'm trying to do
Right.
that in my life when I shouldn't be focused on that because it causes anxiety. I should be putting measurable goals. We should all be putting measurable goals in front of us that we can achieve, and then reassessing them and making sure that we're making progress, not dwelling on the past and being fixated on the future, but going, ahead in front, moving forward in the here and the now. And
Right.
that. So I think with the setbacks, I would say whenever you find yourself kind of thinking about, the past or just being fixated on the future, we just really need to make sure that we're like diving into and leaning into, our superpower because it's not all that super, right? It's
Right.
something that gives you focus, gives you power, gives you purpose, gives you hope, make you want to get up in the morning. That's your superpower. Lean into if it's baking, gardening, landscaping, if it's caring for pets, if it's, working with children, if it's cycling, whatever it is, every time your mind starts to shift one way or the other, you need to get back here, dive into that. It could be another business that you may start. It could maybe create another stream of income. If landscaping is your thing, you like gardening, you could, lean into that, reach out to neighbors, family, and friends and say, hey, let me do your flower bed for you. And you could be creating a whole nother business. But some people, like my sister, she would do it for free because she loves being in the yard and I hate it. So she loves nothing more than for me. She would come to my house and stand in the door where we're talking, and now she's pulling weeds out of my flower bed. I'm like, girl, have at it, you know,
And
because
right.
but gives her, she loves that, right? But if you love doing something like that, you could easily create another source of income. Now you're actually promoting good mental health for yourself. You're keeping your mind off of those issues, and you're earning some money on the side.
Okay.
Right. And so those are, I guess, some of the things that I would say when you're having setbacks, we have to really, it's an exercise in retraining your frontal lobe. You have to train your brain because your brain is going to naturally, after all that trauma and time and being trauma bonded with the narc, your brain is going to go to too far left and too far right. So we have to
Okay.
really train our brain to just get back center again by diving into that superpower. It sounds
Okay.
corny, but it's real. It works.
No, 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 it doesn't. I mean,
It does. I did it. I did. That's what I did. I
right.
constantly walked every day. I walked 2 or 3 times a day. I did it anyway, but when I was under that stress, I wasn't doing it anymore. And it was causing me to have more stress and more doubt and more clouds. And I had to get back out and start walking again, right? I could walk
Mhm.
for miles and miles. I could walk for 2 hours,
You
right?
sound
But
like
I had to stop
Presley.
doing it,
Uh-huh.
right? And then doing my research for my book, I love to read. I love research. I used to read National Geographic cover to cover when I was a little kid. It was nothing better than that. Like I was in my space. Oh, I got my National Geographic, right? So I leaned, I'm dating myself. I leaned into what made me feel good, researching that and doing research. So you lean into it. And then I wasn't thinking about writing a book. It happened. So if
Right.
baking is your thing and you lean into it, you may not be thinking about opening a bakery, but before you know it, you could be opening a bakery, changing your financial status,
Right.
changing your mental outlook on life and putting the narc behind you, putting the narcissist behind you.
Wow. So my question would be because they say that the narc actually preys on people. Um, they have this sense of people who are givers and
Mhm.
people who are, I'm going to use the term die hard, and basically they're people who don't give up as easily. They're always in for the fight to for the betterment and looking for the positive. Um, a person who is naturally that way, how would you actually, like, what advice would you give them in guarding themselves? Because most people who are typically that way, like you said, they look for the good in everyone. And when you're looking for the good in everyone, you tend to miss the bad, or as you said before, justify the bad.
Mhm.
So what advice would you give that
I wouldn't
person?
say because I guess I would describe myself just like you described, like I'm kind of, more positive than not, more upbeat than not. I feel like I can do anything I set my mind to, right? And
Hmm.
that's part of the secure attachment style. We all have multiple attachment styles in there. I
Hmm.
wouldn't say that I would always look for the good in everyone. Doesn't mean I'm looking for people, to be inherently bad. We shouldn't
Hmm.
look for that. We shouldn't look for the good in everyone or look for everyone to do us in. That's extremes. We should really take things face value and do our homework, trust but verify, right?
Hmm.
So I would say going forward, it's not about looking, you don't want to decide, oh, I'm going to look for the good or look for the bad in people. You really want to make sure you learn how to set boundaries, set and enforce boundaries. And then you don't have to worry about what you're looking for in people because you're really setting these boundaries around yourself. When you set good boundaries around yourself, those people that mean you no good are going to go away quickly. Because a narcissist is looking for someone who, not because they're looking for the good in everyone, who doesn't have their boundaries clearly defined and they don't have the ability to really enforce the boundaries. So let's say if you tell this person, it could be a narc or maybe not. I get up at 5 in the morning, so I don't want, don't call me after 10 o'clock at night. Well, they're gonna call at 10:15, the narc, 10:30, 11, 11:30. When you remind them about the boundary that you set, they're going to go into J, justify, argue, defend, and explain. They want you to justify your boundary, argue with you about your boundary, where they're gonna become the victim. I was just trying to check on you and look at how you're doing. Why are you doing all of this? I'm trying to check on you. Defend your boundary, explain your boundary, right? But the person who really cares about your well-being, remember, working on my self-care story, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to make sure if they want to talk to you for an hour, they're going to make sure they call you by 9 o'clock so they can get that hour in. or they're going to call you earlier in the day, or they're going to really lean into your boundaries because they know that your boundaries are for your protection and they care about your well-being. The
Right.
narcissist doesn't care about your well-being. So whatever boundary you set, their goal is to break that boundary. They're not going to start with a big boundary. It's not like they're going to come and pull the whole rug out from under you because you're going to go falling back. Everyone is going to see it. People are going to come to your aid. The
Right.
narcissist is going to pull the rug out one string at a time, right? One boundary at a time. Now are you at 9, at 9:30, at 10:30, at 11? Oh, I'm going to show up at your home unannounced, although you already asked me not to. I'm going to show up at your job with lunch unannounced. And when you say, I asked you not to show up at my job, I'm just bringing you lunch. Why are you doing this to me? This is harm,
Right.
right? But they're going to start out with small things and you're going to feel uncomfortable and say, it's uncomfortable, but I'm going to accept it. And then the break of your boundaries are going to continue to grow. One of the ladies in my book started out with, going with her then fiance to help her look for a car. Her parents gave her the money for the car for a graduation gift. She takes him with her and they leave with the car that he wants, not the car that she
Not
wants.
what she wants.
When I asked her about how did you end up, what was the first boundary you missed? This is something that happened 19 years prior to when I'm talking to her. She said that was the thing that I missed. And it opened her up into all of these other areas where he broke boundaries. And at the end of the story, not the story, at the end of her life, she ends up being exploited. Actually, I'll put it that way, exploited by her husband. So when I
Mm.
asked her, like, what was the boundary that got you all the way here? And she goes all the way back to 19 years ago when
Wow.
she bought that car. She said, she never set the boundary. And now here you go, fast forward, he's groomed her into having, I'll, for the sake of the platform, I'll say having a swinging lifestyle. But she said, that wasn't my lifestyle. I just wanted a good Catholic marriage. I had no intent of that lifestyle.
Right.
You see how the boundaries will continue to grow and they'll put the blame on you and the shame on you. So every time he was able to push a boundary, he would threaten her with, if you don't do this, I'm going to tell your parents that you were doing that. Never mind that he blackmailed her into doing those things. But now he
Wow.
shamed her too and shamed her into silence.
Yeah. That's just like the person saying, well, if you think it's so bad, why are you still here?
I'm still here. It's your fault. Now you
Yeah.
can't be shamed for them.
Wow. Um, how can loved ones, what advice would you give for loved ones and friends, who, may be supporting someone who might be in a grooming situation? Because like you said, when we're involved in that situation or in that relationship, we know what we want. And a lot of times, growing up, they always tell you, don't get involved in somebody's relationship or this, because then next thing you know, you become the enemy. But how can you, of a person who is seeing what's happening or can see what's happening, how can you support someone who's going through that and try to maybe help open their eyes or even help, bring them out of that?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's a slippery slope. I'm not a therapist, a counselor, a coach, or a psychiatrist. I remind you, I'm a healthcare policy analyst. We create the policy,
Right.
we create the corrective action plan, but it's the coach and the counselor that's going to walk you through the day-to-day implementation of that, right? But I
Right.
would say on the surface, you have it's a fine line because you have to really maybe point out to them the things that they used to be, enjoy, and do. Because what happens with the narcissist, they kind of suck you into this cocoon and they're saying we're this happy couple, we're lovebirds in this nest. But what they're really doing is separating you from your family, your friends, your wants, your needs, your hopes, your dreams, separating you from your career, from your religious community. They're isolating you. So I think with
Right.
that, if you're watching that, the most you can do, not the most, the first thing you want to do is to try to appeal to that person's sense of, remember, you used to come to the family events and now you don't come anymore. What's going on? Or remember, you used to come to the work events. Or remember, we used to go jogging. We used to go fishing. We used to, whatever it is, we used to, take hikes. Whatever the case may be, because you're gonna see that they were drawing from these things that they typically enjoyed. And that's one thing you could
Right.
point out to them, that you were
Okay.
drawing from whatever, not in an accusatory way, but just to ask them about like what's happening. Because a lot of
Right.
times when you don't see people anymore, it's because they're in distress and they just kind of fade away from the limelight, right? And then
Right.
you may find most likely a lot of pushback, especially if the narc's tentacles are all the way in. And it's going to be very hard. And if you can't really appeal to that and get them to really try to recenter themselves, and then sometimes you may just have to take a default position of you're going to be there when they're ready. You know, it's like
Mhm.
any other abusive situation. The person has to be ready and willing to leave the abusive situation. And the more you try to put them, it's like quicksand. The more you try to pull them, I mean, the deeper they're going to sink, or they'll leave and come
Right.
back. And sometimes I think it's on average 6 times in some abusive situations, people leave and come back, or the narc will leave and they'll allow them to come back, you know. And so you
Right.
have to really be a support system and weather the storm. And then when they come to you and tell you what they're experiencing, that's the opposite side. You have to believe them. And
Right.
it's going to sound crazy and grandiose. Like, what do you mean your husband, like the lady in my book, your husband is bringing people home to have these experiences with? I put it that way. And they won't
Mhm.
believe it because the person is otherwise a safe, upstanding person. And you have to believe them when they tell you
Right.
something really grandiose. Because one of the beauty of the
Right.
narc, not only are they doing people are going to ignore. They do things that are so outlandish that people will not believe you. When I told people
Right.
that we went on this family vacation, that was also our wedding anniversary, and that the very next morning he got up and left us there, some people did not believe me. Now, eventually they did because I was in the fortunate situation of having receipts, right? But
Mhm.
initially, they said, "What do you mean? We just saw him last week singing your praises on social media at this event,
Right.
talking about what a wonderful wife you were. What do you mean that now, 5 days later, this happens and people were inclined not to believe me?" So when a person comes to you and tells you
I
something
get it.
really outlandish, you have to believe them, especially if you've known them to be a trustworthy person. Why would you not?
Right.
Narcissist is always planting these seeds of doubt. They'll go to people in your family, your friends, your community, your religion, and start planting these of doubt when they realize that you see them for who they are. And they'll say
Right.
things like you're doing something out of the ordinary, drinking, smoking, missing work, sleeping too much, eating too much, overeating, undereating, you know, abusing substances, abusing the family. They're going to plant these, they're going to say these things to people. And then when the
Right.
person says, "Oh, let me check. Let me go call her. Let me call him because I didn't know this." "Oh, no, no, no. Don't do that. I got it," says an art, right? "I just want to
Right.
let you know." Now they're planting the seed of doubt. So when you come back
Mm.
to talk about the abuse that you're experiencing from the person, the narcissist is hoping that the people are going to say, "What do you mean?"
Right.
Yeah.
So in those situations where, like you just said, how some it takes it like, depending on the level, sometimes five, six, even seven times for for the final, finale. Um, what do you, because a lot of times when you have people who have those type of situations, like you said, and they break up, they get back together, they break up, they get back together, or however, and then that support system, a lot of times, sometimes you'll see weaken, you know um, okay, maybe it's breakup number three, and that person is coming for support. And then eventually, sometimes people get to a point where, it kind of almost like they turn on you. It's like, well, you don't want to keep going back, or you don't want to keep taking them, or this is just something y'all be back together within so and so. So, and like, how can you, or what would you say to someone who's someone's family, to the person who's going through this, like, to encourage them, listen, how to still stay there and be mindful and always still be that support, versus getting to a point of abandoning them as well, and saying, you know what, this is just something that y'all do, whatever, go on.
I don't know. Because I have to say, I don't know for two reasons. One, as I said, I'm not a therapist, but two, because my book actually focuses on how you can empower yourself to remove yourself.
Right.
And so I haven't done enough research on that other than like on the surface, like to say this is the way that the narcissist is going to isolate you. And the isolation can be mental, physical, spiritual, financial, or even legal, right? This is how they're
Right.
going to groom you, how they're going to isolate you, and how they're going to abuse you. So my book is really speaking to the victim, right? How you
Mm-hmm.
can recognize, because I think the problem is when people keep going around and around, they don't even recognize their abuse. Because the narcissist is going to redefine your definition of abuse. They're going to say, especially the covert narc is going to say, I never put my hands on you. You can't, I don't know why you're saying that. And tell other people, I never put my hands on him or her. I didn't abuse them. So they're going to
Right.
redefine and shrink your idea of abuse down to physical abuse,
Right.
leaving out the spiritual, psychological, mental, and legal and financial abuse. So I think the biggest thing is to get that person to understand all of, the entire spectrum of abuse so they can really see it.
Right.
I think people go back because they don't even see and recognize the abuse because the narcissist has convinced them that because you're not in a particular situation that you're not abused. Even if you
Right.
take, let's not even use physical, financial abuse. The
Mm-hmm.
narcissist is going to convince you that you're not experiencing financial abuse, right? And they're going to discount, the financial abuse and say you have all these other things available to you, right?
Right.
But if you don't have autonomy of your finances, if you don't have the freedom to work and earn your own money and spend your money how you want to support yourself
Right.
in your journey, this is financial oppression. And the Honorable Marcus Garvey said, when you stand upright, those riding your back will scream the loudest as they fall from the place of comfort. That's oppression, right?
Right.
The narcissist will oppress you mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, and legally. The narcissist will keep you from your pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's
Right.
oppression. But they're going
That
to
is
tell you that it's not. And that's why people go back because the narc gets in their head and say, well, I didn't do this. Now, they could have 15 things they did do, but they're going to say, but I didn't do this, so you were not abused, you were not oppressed.
right.
And so then the person can't even wrap their brain, they can't even see their own abuse. So I think if we
Right.
can appeal to your shrinking away from the family, the friend group, or whatever, and appeal to, abuse is on a spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a better opportunity. But it definitely takes some type of therapeutic interception, clinical interception, because the trauma bond is not anything different than Stockholm syndrome. And that's not something that we non-clinical, well, I would say myself as a non-clinical care person, can
Right.
unravel. I can create the steps, I can create the corrective action plan, but it takes clinical intervention to really reset and untangle your frontal lobe.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. Um, since publishing Hidden in Plain Sight, and that was August of 2023. What kinds of responses have you received in regard, from readers and from the public as well, people you've just touched?
Well, I would have to say from my perspective, the responses have been positive, but I don't know if I don't know. I would assume people would give me some negative response if they felt negatively about it, but maybe
Right.
not. I don't know. But it has been at Barnes and Noble and Amazon at 5 stars since 2023. I just
Hmm.
opened the TikTok shop, so I don't have any stats on that, but it's also available at Google Play and iTunes. The responses and the reviews have been very positive. And I have to say that I'm even happier to see that the responses from men have been positive because when I was writing the book, I only interviewed women, but I had 15 men read the book, and your husband was one of them, I believe,
Yes, he
um,
was.
to read the book before it went to the publisher because
Right.
I wanted men to tell me if they felt villainized by the book. And I wanted them to tell me how they felt they could use this as a tool in their own life. And all of the men said
Mhm.
across the board that they felt that they learned how to protect the women in their circle and that they did not feel villainized by the book. They felt like they could do a self-assessment using the book. And so I'm really happy about the positive response from men and women, but from men, because, some people say, oh, this is just another male bashing book, but it was never meant to be. And thank goodness it wasn't.
Right.
And even training the military chaplains in the whole room, there were only two female chaplains in the room. Because
Right.
even now in the military, even like the Air Force, they just got their first female chaplain like last year. And so it was a room full of men who were leaning into the change. And we have to not, I even say multiple times in the book, you can't look at men and say, because I experienced this situation from a man, that all men are bad. That is really
Mhm.
taking a step, 10 step backwards, right?
Right.
We
I
have to have
agree.
positive male figures in our life to help us get through this type of trauma and come out even, come out, emotionally centered. We can't
Mhm.
come out of this and say, when I hear people say, I'm never trusting anyone again, it lets me know you don't trust yourself. You don't
Right.
trust yourself to be able to discern who you can trust. Or if I hear men say, I'm never trusting women again, well, now what you're going to do? Or women say, I'm never trusting men again. So what's your plan moving forward? What's the plan? How does that look? In real life, in real time, like, what are you going to do now? We're not,
Yeah.
we're not meant to be single creatures,
True.
right? So,
Right.
yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think I said a lot. Enough. I'll put that
No,
enough.
no, and I agree. I mean, and like you said, because I know for myself when I read the book, like I said, it opened my eyes to a whole different understanding because for me, um, I'm gonna be honest with you, narcissist wasn't even on my Richter, on my in my vocabulary. It's like it wasn't even a thought, right?
Mhm.
But it actually opened me up to a whole different thing. And then, just by going in and like you said, reading your stories, now where you can pull similarities, wait a minute, well, I experienced this. Wait, so that open up that whole dialogue with yourself. Well, have I been, abused narcissistically, and so forth. So I know for me it was a big eye opener, and you're right. I know when my husband read it, he even asked. He was like, he asked, "Have he ever been guilty of some of these things?" So he, and that put him in a whole nother mental dive for himself. Because when you're looking at it, like you said, the difference between bad behaviors versus narcissistic behavior and so forth. There is a line, there is a fine line, but like you said, once you explain how to tell the difference, it, and it's like, oh, okay, well, now I can feel more comfortable about yes or no. I
Mhm.
can feel more positive or confirmed in rather yes or no. Um, and I do like the fact that, like you said, because we tend to think only women experience narcissistic relationships, and that's not true. Men are victims of it just as well as us. But of course, in the society that we live in, where men are taught to be silent, you know and all this other stuff, unfortunately they go unheard or unknown about. But it is a equally, um I guess, gender situation, you know um
Men who are narcissists and who are diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder than women, and it's because of our makeup.
uh-huh.
I don't know if it would be equal, but I understand what you're saying. But I want people to get the idea that okay, but there are more men who are narcissistic than women. And
Right.
it could be because of our more compliant, docile way, because you have to really be overpowering to be narcissistic. And then some of those good characteristics that men have, like for instance, it's good for a man to be able to defend his family physically, but if he takes that
Mhm.
same ability and uses it against people intimidate or to hurt people, now that same good characteristic has now become something bad,
Right.
right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
reasons why more this inherent thing, right? To be hunters, to be protectors, to be dominant. We need them to do that, but
Right.
not to use it against people in a way that is harmful. Yeah.
Right. So I do also want to ask on a what is your hope on a broader impact for the book, for individuals, for communities, and even for how we talk about emotional abuse and narcissism.
My hope is that the book will allow people to really take inventory not only of themselves, but of the people around them. Because sometimes we're not getting traction in life because the people that are creating these obstacles are people we call family and friends, and sometimes ourselves. And so we really have to
Mhm.
take inventory. And sometimes it means you're going to have to go completely no contact with some people that you typically, are engaged with, or maybe go low contact and protect yourself and create those boundaries. So I hope that people are able to create healthy boundaries to really understand the dynamics of how they can protect themselves and then also how they can protect their family and friends. I hope
Yeah.
that's what is the result and how they can
Mhm.
create a positive plan for their recovery and thriving. I don't want people to feel like they're victims. I want people to feel like, you know what, I was victimized, but I'm not a victim. And I have
Okay.
full power to change the trajectory of my life. I have full power to protect myself. I have full power to say no. I hope it empowers people.
I do. I like that. So let me ask you this. You're someone who's seen both who's seen both darkness and recovery. What message of empowerment or hope would you like to leave to the listeners who may just be beginning to question their relationship and even their own story?
To, I would say to find your tribe. Because when you're telling people about what you're experiencing, if it's, from uncomfortable to abuse, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, or legal, when you're sharing what you're experiencing with someone and they doubt you, they don't lean in to assist, or they don't lean in to say, at least to acknowledge your experience, then you need to make sure you understand that's not your tribe. You're never going to
Right.
gain your power back like that. And also, don't you want to ask for help, but don't show up empty handed when you're
Mhm.
creating your recovery plan. And I do talk with people about the recovery plan. We actually walk through. I have actually, the first person to do my recovery plan was a man, right? He's almost
Wow.
finished. He comes on my live every now and then to update us. But when you're talking about, asking for help, you want the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, but don't do it too soon. You want to empower yourself because when you go to someone else for help and they fix for you, you still have no power. You just shifted your power from the narc to this other person.
Okay.
It's well meaning. It may fix everything for you, but you haven't taken your power back. We have to be able to
Right.
stretch and grow and empower ourselves to make positive change for ourselves. And when we get stuck and we can't go any further, then reach out for
Right.
help, right? But we have to really do
Right.
the work, the heavy lifting as much as we can on our own, so we can really learn how to get our power back.
That's awesome. So, and this is just me now going into a whole free form. Kaleem, because like I said, I had the pleasure of meeting you and being there for the actual launch of the book.
And I went to
Um,
your lunch too. Yeah.
you did. I think you. And I mean, even
Yeah,
since that,
join at the hip
just
forever.
watching,
In that
but just
experience.
watching. Hmm.
I said we are joined forever by that experience.
Yes, yes, and I am forever blessed. I've been watching you. Like I said, I've been watching you, seeing you going and speaking, and at the different engagements. And so my thing is what I would like to know. Um, were you fearful of being received wrongly, um, by the public? You know.
I was because so many people came to me. I won't say a lot, enough
Mhm.
came to me and said, "You should hide your brother's faults." And that's what we say as Muslims. I don't know if Christians have something similar that they say.
They do.
Yeah. And so, but I have to remind them, no, the Quran says to hide your brother's faults. The Quran also says that the victim is allowed, right, to
Mhm.
publicly, you know, um, seek justice. You're allowed to do that. not in a way to be messy, not in a way to create havoc, but you're allowed to seek justice. They forget that part. They conveniently leave that part out.
Right.
I was concerned because, and of course, it was men and women. Some said to me, like, you should be trying to hide your brother's faults. No, I'm the victim. I'm allowed to either hide the fault and forgive it, or I can seek justice and forgive it. I have the choice. I have agency over myself.
Right.
The other thing is if I do that, then other people will be victimized because I remained silent. And so that was I didn't get a lot when the book came out, I was expecting a whole lot of neck, but it didn't happen, right? Because it was
That's
just, it didn't happen. It was more people supporting than not.
mhm.
And so more people pushing me, even imams, the men, the ministers in the community, like pushing me, like, yes, they pushed me forward. When I was going back and forth to divorce court, there were two imams that came with me every single time and sat in the gallery. So
Right.
to have men to support the journey was actually more empowering, I would say, because they were the very ones that had more reason to oppose it. Because people
Right.
think, oh, they're gonna side, take side, but they didn't. They sided on the side of truth and right and what's right.
Right.
But I think the only negative thing that came of it was that people, and you may have experienced this yourself, because of course with your book,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna switch, I'm gonna switch the gears on you, ask you a question. But I did find that people defined me by the book. This whole thing, a blip on the radar scale in my life. I'm 56. This was a 5-year period in my life. And now people define me my whole life, no matter all the other successes and things that I have accomplished, they define me by this experience.
Right.
Right? And that's something I'm still grappling with because I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
not that 5 years. I have 50, 4 other years that I can
Right.
discuss. It's great, if they're defining it to say it's use it as use my struggle as a survival guide. Okay, that's okay.
Right.
But don't
Right.
define me by this experience because I've had many people when I say something, they say, "Oh, I'm not a narc." Like I never said you were a narc, but since you're saying it, then maybe you should own it. But I didn't say that. They say stuff to me like that. Are you evaluating me? You're thinking about, no, this is not my whole life. I have a whole life outside of this book. I have all
Right.
types of things that I do and want to do and have done. I've done a whole lot of things, too
Right.
long to even list, right? And so
Right.
it doesn't define me in that way. But if you allow other people to define you, they're going to pick your lowest moment. They're going to pick the moment where you had the most challenges. They're going to pick the moment where you did the wrong thing to define you.
Mhm.
So you have to define yourself. And so I'm asking you, after your book came out, did you experience people, trying to define you by the book in a negative way, or just kind of reduce your whole life experience, this thing? And how did you deal with that? Now I'm going to ask you the questions.
No, you know what? And to be honest with you, yes, and I'm still going through it. You and every time something like if I have a challenge come up, um, somehow it's being related back to, like you said, oh, something in my book or something. So you're right. Yeah, people will tend to associate you that way, and even with the fact that, um, because what I see what we're doing, number one, is that we're bringing awareness and education and trying to help, but it's being perceived as, oh, you're whining, you're doing this. I don't want to hear this anymore. I've gotten that type of feedback, and it's just so negative and it's so draining. And it's like, it's only draining because I feel as though it's draining for persons who are saying this because you don't want to face the reality. It's like they say, it's the difficult conversation that you don't want to have. You want to sweep under the rug, but it like you said, as long as we keep sweeping it under the rug, we're crippling our society, our people. We're perpetuating this sickness,
Mhm.
right? So yes, um and I like you said, I just pretty much keep praying God will send me my tribe, and which he does. The people that it resonate with or that it's for will be touched by it in a positive way, and I hear the good feedbacks from them, and I pretty much have to, like you say, I have to use that to pretty much fuel me, because I can honestly say at one point it got a little discouraging. I was like, well, I don't think it's even considered how hard it is and what it actually takes for you, number one, to be not only be vulnerable enough to deal with your story and to start working through your story, but then when you take and you put your story out there, like even with my husband, when I was doing my book, like you said, it was 5 years. This was like a certain whatever period of my life. And my biggest fear was being judged, you know. Um, and I didn't. At first, I was like, "That's my business. Let it be," But more and more after I realized it, and I started seeing that the connection that I had were with women of similar backgrounds, I was like, "Well, wait a minute. There's something more to this,"
Mhm.
And like you said, this is something that's happening more as when you started doing your research for your book. You're like, wait a minute. You started realizing this is too common of a thing you know but yeah, so for me, I pretty much I draw on the positive and do my best. I take the criticism, because how can I maybe deliver it in a way that might be best, or that person may receive it, but for the most part, I trust in the delivery is going to be the way it's supposed to be for who it's supposed to be for you know
Exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Like I just say to people, it may not be for you.
yeah.
My grandmother used to say, "There's a lid for every pot." Maybe I'm not the lid for your pot. Okay, maybe
Grandma.
it's just not for you, And I
Right.
even put someone came on my Facebook page talking crazy. I said, you know what? There's a whole lot of pages out there. This page is not for you. That's
Yeah.
it. It's not for you.
Yeah.
Even, and that still probably drives Dr. Barry crazy. Even when I'm, advertising the book, and I just say, check it out, see what you think. Maybe it's not for you. I'm not a salesperson. As an author, you're not a salesperson. You just write the book, right? But it's like
Right.
maybe it's not for you. You don't have
Right.
to. You don't have to be in my tribe. And the other thing that I saw another author say that I was like, wow, she's like, your family is not your target audience. Okay. So, because once someone was complaining that their family and friends had not purchased or read their book, and she's like, that's not your target audience. If all of your family and friends bought your book, you still haven't sold any books. Like, really, how big is your family, right? And
Right.
it may not be, it's not their, it may not be what they need. And so that's why I feel very comfortable in telling people maybe it's not for you. I'm okay. Maybe I'm not for
Right.
you. I'm okay with
Right.
it. We just have to be okay to say, it's not for you. It's not for everybody. I,
Right.
but
I
yeah,
agree.
it's frustrating though when people say, I know you. I have someone to say that, I'm like, you don't know me. You know what I wrote in my book. It's like this much of my life. You don't know me,
Right.
you
And so
know?
a snippet of something that got through, and
Yeah.
based
It's interesting.
my entire existence off of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
You definitely, Kaleema, because I know you have different events that you attend. Are you working on anything in particular coming up?
I am still trying to get my workbook because
Mhm.
I'm doing a workbook that's going to lay out, it's going to, because everything in my book, the 8 steps to recovery is in narrative. I want the workbook, and you already, so you can help me with that. I want the workbook to be templates and, a place so people can chart their plan, their recovery plan. Because as I said, I'm a policy analyst by profession, and we're all big on creating, the corrective action plan. And so that is what my workbook is going to be, the corrective action plan. And so, but coming up as far as speaking engagements, I did 2 really big engagements in the summer, the one in Chicago and one in Charlotte. And then right now I just have one coming up for the International League of Muslim Women, I believe. That's still, we're trying to put that together to be the keynote
Mhm.
for that event in DC. And so
Wow.
I'm open for public speaking engagements. I love to do those small roundtable discussions. And I think I want to do something here. We're in the same area at the House of Consciousness to have 4 or 5 authors come, talk about their work and have engaging conversation with people there. I've done it before. It's been a couple of years. I think I want to do it again and invite you and some other, local authors to come and tell your story. So I want to do things like that so people can get all types of avenues to healing. And I tell people, my book may not be the best one for you, Cheryl's book might be
Right.
better for you than my book, but we can all be in this space. It's room for everybody. So I hope to be able to do some local events like that. Yes.
Well, definitely 2020, July 20. So this year we did it on July 26th. And that was in honor of self-love. I think it's National Self-Love Day. I'm trying to, but the actual day is July 24th. July of next year, around the same time, in honor of the same event, we will be doing another woman to woman. So definitely, I want to have you there. This year, when we did it, we basically took search from the 4 sections and spoke on it. Had persons in those fields, but definitely, I want to work with you and have you in on a woman to woman platform because it's like you said, I might not be your cup of tea. You might need you might need the nut, your cup of tea. You might need, so definitely there's something that I want to get with you and partner with you on and doing that as well. Um the event that's coming up in DC that you guys are still putting together, is that going to be exclusive to Muslim women or women who are
No, and I'm not putting it together. I was saying we're still trying to put together if I'm going to be, the keynote or not. I had
right.
the initial invitation to be the keynote for that, and
Mhm.
so they're going to give me final confirmation. But it's not all of the events. Any events for Muslims are typically open to everyone,
Okay.
and and that event, the International League of Muslim Women, they are an international nonprofit working for women and for the empowerment of women everywhere. It's not just
Okay.
it's just not for Muslim women. Yes.
Okay. Well, definitely once you get the finalization on that, let me know. I want to put it out
Okay.
there. And invite women for my platform as well. And I'm definitely gonna reserve my date because I would love to be there to see you, to be just in the audience itself. Um anything and I know you say you're working on your workbook, and I mean that's gonna be
You did yours
powerful.
all together. That was a lot.
That
How
was a
did that?
lot.
How did you do that?
That was a lot. And you
I
know
my
what?
mind was blown. I'm like, how did she do that?
And it, and to be honest with you, it was a lot because, but I remember we were talking about how draining it was just writing the book itself. Um, and what I typically did, just to be transparent, I took my book and I plugged sections of it into AI. I used AI to help me with the workbook because, like I told you, I had drained so much out of me. I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't even know how to formulate, like, how can I formulate this question? So I took search from my actual book and I was like, okay, I asked AI, help me do this, and it helped me formulate, and then I just went in and I tweaked it. So I'm not gonna sit up and say I am a fan of AI. It's very helpful, and it helped lift a lot of that burden off of me in doing so.
Yes.
um
I can see. I used AI with Dr. Barry to help
mm,
me with the training for the military chaplains because part of the training, the part that was from my book, I was good. But part of it was about how to redirect the behavior of the narcissist. My book doesn't talk about that at all. And so
right.
and she showed me how I could use uh I forgot the name of the program. It's actually a program kind of like PowerPoint where you're just putting in these points and it generates, you know. And so I have
Everything.
to come to terms with that because I for work, you know, I review and analyze policies and procedures. It could be 10 pages, it could be 400 pages. So I'm resistant because even people on my job are using AI and I'm still resisting. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I can do this because I like writing, but it's not
Right.
not be it might be conducive to what I need to
Right.
do. And so I'm still struggling with that. You know, it's like I might as well just have a rotary phone at home. I'm still struggling with moving forward. You know, like I'm the person with cord
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't want this code. I'm like, I want AI. I need to come to grips, you know. Yeah, because you're right.
I mean,
It's
honestly,
draining writing the book and
it
yeah.
is.
It's draining. It literally sucks the life out of you in a positive way because you're pouring into somebody else, but you're draining yourself at the same time. Whew.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's how I was able to do that. But I'm excited for you. I cannot wait for the work to come out so I can get that and I can pair it with my book. um, and I know you say you have the speaking engagement. Now, are there any other endeavors, another book, another podcast, or a podcast or anything coming or even in the thoughts?
I do have my TikTok. I go live on TikTok every week. Well, I actually go live
Right.
every Saturday at 4, and then I go live randomly throughout the week. So I may be live on TikTok like 4 or 5 times a week. And I actually walk
Okay.
people through the recovery plan. As I said, there's one man, the first person to start my recovery plan was a man, which I like, you know. And some women say,
Right.
well, it's gonna be because, you know, men don't lean into stuff like that. We got to give them credit, right?
Yeah.
And so I do the TikTok live, you know, probably maybe 6 to 7 hours a week, which is very draining, but I just kind of move that onto other platforms. So, because sometimes people say, you're always, no, I'm not. I do a TikTok live, and it's, when you think about a 1 hour TikTok, you have 120 clips that you can put out. So you got
Yeah.
clips for days, right? So it's
Yeah.
a good way to put out a lot of information without putting in a lot of work, you know.
Right.
But I don't have any aspirations of doing a podcast. I'll leave that to you. Because so yeah, you know, it's draining. Like just like
It
being
is.
on the TikTok live is draining, doing a podcast, you have to be consistent. And you know, so I definitely enjoy coming on to other people's podcasts and chatting it up. I don't have any
Mm.
aspirations to do one for myself. I do after the workbook, and I've been asked if I'm going to do a book interviewing men. I think I'll leave
Mhm.
that to a man. So I don't even know, because with my book, I have several chapters that can be ballooned out into a full book. So I don't think I will reinvent the wheel. I think I will go back. I do think about sometimes circling back to those same women, like a where are you now in your journey type, you know,
Oh, get a
interviews.
follow-up.
I do, you know, have ideas about doing something like that. So people can see and kind of grow with us because we were all in different stages of recovery. Like I was still in counseling. I wrote the book I started writing the book probably 6 months after this happened. So I'm still deep in the like drowning in the thick of it. And some of the
Mhm.
women were, you know, 1 year or 2 year. I think the woman that was furthest out was 8 years out her divorce, and she was still traumatized from what she went through. So I would like to maybe do something and circle back with them to see how their journey is going.
That's awesome. So I'm not gonna. I've tied you up long enough, and I've honestly enjoyed this conversation. And I would love to honestly pick up more, like you said, because there's so much more to this topic that I would love to conversate about. Um, but before we leave, I definitely want you to let everyone know where can they find your book, where can they find you, should they even want you to come and speak. So take the floor.
Okay. Well, my book is available at Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, Kindle, and TikTok Shop. I'm trying to flood the market. It's available in all places, that you can get it. I don't have the audiobook yet, but I do want to do that as well. And then as far as where to find me, you see right here, Kaleema Overton-Ameen. That is me on all of the social media platforms, same name. And email if you're interested in having me come to do a roundtable discussion, seminars, what do you call it, keynote addresses. I'm also available to do virtual roundtables with a group. And you can email me at Kaleema Ameen, my name right there, Kaleema Ameen, no spaces, at gmail.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. And if you purchase my book, I definitely look forward to getting feedback. And so it's been a journey. I mean, we never know when life throws you from a cliff, you're just going to be surprised to know that you actually can fly. And you're just going to be like, oh, I was afraid of this. And yeah, I'm good. You're going to be
Oh, I
great.
loved it. I love it. Well, once again, Miss Kaleema, thank you so much for
Thank you. Always
coming
good to
on.
see you.
I
We have
mean,
to
you,
see each other in person. We live in the same area. We need to get
I
together
know we,
for breakfast. I love to eat now, so you let me know.
okay. Definitely,
I love
definitely,
to eat. So you let me
definitely.
know we can get together for lunch or breakfast or something.
Yes, yes, we need to. But again, thank you. As always, you've been a big support. And I love supporting you and I love to see what you're doing. And in that note, to my guests, ladies, divas, thank you for tuning in. I hope this was beneficial for you. Again, you have all the information. If you want to see more of Kaleema, reach out and thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see your crown, sis, don't you hide it. You've been through storms, but look, you survived it. Your heart's a diamond born of pain. Every tear watered the seeds of your rain. We don't compete, we complete. Hands joined strong, that's how queens meet. Our voices heal the room we're in. When one of us rises, we all are same. We are mirrors, not rivals. Reflections of survival. Every scar, every story sacred and divine. Together we glow, together we shine. Oh, sister, rise, lift your light to the skies. No more shame, no camouflage. We're the wind beneath each other's wings. Harmony of hearts that sing, we heal, we build, we prophesy. Woman to woman, we testify. We're unbreakable, we realize. Our power multiplies when sisters rise. From broken chains to golden ties, we speak love, not alibis. Your win is mine, your dream's my flame. We're riding what they call the game. Rooted, deep, connected souls, aligned in purpose, reaching goals. Spirit-led, we're unified. A phoenix tribe, electrified. Who are we? We're divas, just an intentional victory. It's what we do. We rise in truth, healing love, and leave the past behind. What are we breaking? Curses, chains, and limits. It's our time to shine. So sister, rise. Our wings ignite. We're turning darkness into light. From ashes born, from pain refined. Together we heal the soul of humankind. Our hearts are temples, our words divine. Aligned in grace, our spirits intertwine. One sister's flame can light the skies. But together, oh, the world will rise. I am my sister's keeper, and she is mine. Together we heal generations with our shine. We are abundance. We are divine. We are woman to woman. And it's our time.